Stop scrolling. Right now, someone you admire, someone living the exact life you secretly want, is hiding one secret from you. It has nothing to do with money, nothing to do with luck, nothing to do with connections. Carl Jung discovered it decades before the world even had a name for it, and in the next few minutes, I'm handing you that exact same code. The same code they used to build empires, while you, without even knowing it, have been using it to build excuses. There is an ancient secret, one that every person you've ever admired, the ones living the life you secretly want, has never told you out loud. And it has nothing to do with money, nothing to do with connections, nothing to do with luck. The great minds who went deep into the human psyche, Carl Jung among them, discovered this long before modern science had a name for it. The most successful people on this earth are not the smartest, the richest, or the luckiest. They are simply the ones who learned to control their own mind. And this knowledge has stayed hidden, almost as if your success would threaten someone else's power. Because the real difference between you and them isn't talent. It isn't your degree. It isn't the opportunities you got or didn't get. The difference is happening right now, in the conversation running inside your head. While you walk down the street replaying your mistakes on a loop, tearing yourself apart, they are using that same inner voice to plan their next win. While you rehearse failure in your mind, they rehearse success. While you talk to yourself like an enemy, they talk to themselves like their most loyal ally. This is not motivational fluff. This is not just think positive. Carl Jung himself said this is the exact mechanism by which reality is built. Your inner voice is the programming language of your life, and most people are running on broken code, a virus installed in their mind years ago without their permission. The wealthy, the powerful, the fulfilled. They found that broken code and rewrote it. Jung called it the collective unconscious, and through it, he showed that your thoughts don't just describe your reality, they create it. They used this code to build empires. You may have used the exact same code, without knowing it, to build excuses. Today, I'm going to give you that same code. Drawing from the depth psychology of Carl Jung, I am going to show you how to reprogram your mind in just 7 days. How to stop settling for the limited life you assumed you deserved, and start building the life you actually desire. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. If this message is speaking to something real inside you, subscribe to Carl Jung Philosophy and hit the like button. Because what comes next may genuinely change the way you see yourself and the people around you. Right now, in this exact second, there is a voice inside your mind. It has been speaking to you since the moment you opened your eyes this morning. This voice has been your most loyal and sometimes your most brutal companion for years. Here is what most people never notice or are too afraid to face. That inner conversation is building your entire life, moment by moment, without pause. You have roughly 60,000 thoughts every single day, and most people spend 90% of them repeating the exact same patterns as yesterday. They wake up and the mind plays the same old record, the same worry, the same complaints, the same self-imposed limits. But what if you could rewrite that inner voice in just 7 days? What if you could speak to yourself the way the people you admire speak to themselves, with clarity, with conviction, like a sage? What if you could direct those 60,000 daily thoughts to build, thread by thread, the life you actually want? Your current reality is a mirror of how you have spoken to yourself until now. If money feels tight, listen closely to what you whisper to yourself about money. If your relationships keep failing, pay attention to the story you tell yourself about love and whether you believe you deserve it. The outside world is always a reflection of the inside one. Most people's relationship with themselves is, tragically, an abusive one. The words they would never say to a friend, they say to themselves without hesitation. But when you change that conversation, your whole life shifts around it. The real awakening is realizing you have been programming yourself unconsciously all along. Now, you are going to learn how to do it on purpose, guided by Carl Jung's principle of bringing the shadow into the light of conscious awareness. Most people exist on autopilot. They wake up and the mind immediately launches the same tired program. I'm too tired. I'm not good enough. I can't handle this. Does any of that sound familiar? This mental noise is like a broken radio station playing in the background of your life, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And for most people, that station only plays the saddest songs, past failures, crushed hopes, unresolved fears. But the power to change that station has always been in your hands. When you start speaking to yourself the way successful people do, everything changes. Think of the most confident, most accomplished person you know. Do you really believe they wake up every morning listing all the reasons they'll fail? Do they spend their day drowning in self-criticism, doubting themselves, fixating on everything that could go wrong? Of course not. They learned to use their inner voice not as a weapon against themselves, but as a tool to create. We were all taught how to read, write, and do math in school, but no one ever taught us how to speak to ourselves. So we absorbed it by default, from worried parents, anxious teachers, or a culture that confuses self-criticism with humility. Your thoughts create your emotions. Your emotions drive your actions. Your actions create your results. This cycle either traps you or it sets you free. When you direct your thinking, you feel different. When you feel different, you act different. And when you act different, life gives you different results. As Carl Jung emphasized, the mind cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is vividly imagined. When you tell yourself you are confident, capable, and worthy of success, your mind accepts it as truth and begins rebuilding your biology around it. When you consistently speak as if you are already becoming the person you want to be, you start embodying it right now in this moment. But most people do the opposite. They rehearse failure. They practice anxiety. They reinforce their own limits with every single thought. They wake up and mentally prepare for things to go wrong. And then they genuinely wonder why life feels so relentlessly difficult. When you change how you speak to yourself, you change how you treat yourself. When you change how you treat yourself, your entire posture in the world shifts. And when your posture shifts, the world responds to you differently. People treat you differently. Opportunities arrive through different channels. This is not self-deception. This is not pretending. This is aligning your inner voice with who you truly are and who you are becoming. This is consciously breaking old conditioned habits and deliberately building a new self, one chosen conversation at a time. The beauty of this practice is that it costs nothing. No equipment, no certification, no one's permission. All it requires is paying real attention to how you speak to yourself and choosing a different path every time you catch the old one pulling you back. Over the next 7 days, you are going to transform your relationship with yourself through conscious, deliberate inner dialogue. Why 7 days? Because that is exactly the time needed to start breaking automatic patterns. Within 7 days, you build enough momentum to genuinely feel the shift. You feel different, you act different, and you start seeing different outcomes around you. Across these 7 days, you will move through 3 levels of transformation. First, becoming aware of how you currently speak to yourself, because most people have zero awareness of their inner dialogue. Second, learning to interrupt the old patterns and replace them with new ones. Third, raising your inner dialogue to match the extraordinary person you are becoming. The key here is consistency, not perfection. You don't need to catch every single negative thought. You just need to be more conscious than unconscious, more deliberate than automatic. Every time you catch yourself and choose a better inner conversation, you are rewiring your mind, building your new reality along the path Jung called individuation. Your environment matters enormously during these 7 days. Surround yourself with people, books, and content that support the new inner conversation you are building. Limit your exposure to negativity, harsh criticism, and constant messages of limitation. Remember, you are installing a new operating system in your mind, and that process becomes dramatically easier when you're not being bombarded by the old programming from every direction. Now let's begin with the first 2 days. Days 1 and 2 are the days of awareness and intervention. Here you become a neutral, impartial observer of your own thinking. Most people are so fused with their thoughts that they mistake themselves for their thoughts. But as Jung observed, you are not your thoughts. You are the consciousness that has the power to choose its thoughts. Your task for the first 2 days is simple. Catch yourself. When you notice yourself speaking critically, negatively, or in limiting ways, just notice it. You don't need to change anything yet. Just observe. Get curious about your own patterns. How often do you criticize yourself in a day? What situations trigger that negative inner voice? What are the most common limiting phrases your mind repeats? When you catch yourself, use the power of the deliberate pause. Take a slow, conscious breath. Simply acknowledge that you are observing the thought, not being controlled by it. This awareness, this act of stepping back and seeing instead of being swept away, is the first gateway to freedom. Most people go entire days without once noticing what they're telling themselves. But you are different now. You are waking up to your own inner architecture. Instead of judging yourself for having negative thoughts, approach them with the curiosity of a scientist. Ask yourself, where did this thought come from? Is it serving me or working against me? Is it rooted in something real and present, or is it just an old program running on habit? Look at your own mental patterns not with frustration, but with genuine fascination. The intervention technique itself is simple, but carries the precision Jung himself would have recognized. When you catch yourself in a negative inner conversation, simply say, out loud or internally, stop, or cancel, or delete. You are literally cutting the flow of the old program midstream. Then take a deep breath and consciously choose a different thought. You don't need to leap straight into some wildly optimistic declaration. Simply choose something more neutral, more kind, more genuinely supportive of where you want to go. For instance, if you catch yourself thinking, I always ruin everything, interrupt it and replace it with, I learn and grow from every experience I go through. If your inner voice says, I can't handle this, shift it to, I am finding creative and effective ways to get what I truly want. If the voice says, I'm not smart enough, replace it with, I am constantly expanding my knowledge and growing my abilities. The goal is never to eliminate negative thoughts completely. That's neither possible nor necessary. The goal is to become consciously aware of your inner dialogue and to start deliberately choosing thoughts that support you instead of sabotaging you. Every single time you do this, you strengthen your ability to be the master of your mind instead of its prisoner. Days 3 and 4 take you to the next level. These are the days of transformation and redirection. Now that you've practiced noticing and interrupting your patterns, it's time to consciously install new ones. Here, you start speaking to yourself the way you would speak to your closest friend, or to a child you love, or to someone whose well-being you would protect with everything you have. Human beings are extraordinarily harsh with themselves. The words they say to themselves, the accusations, the contempt, the dismissals, are things they would never say to someone they cared about. But what if you gave yourself the same warmth, the same encouragement, the same patience you naturally give the people you love? What if, instead of being your own harshest critic, you became your own most devoted supporter? During days 3 and 4, practice speaking to yourself with real compassion. When you make a mistake, instead of attacking yourself, ask, what can I actually learn from this? When you face a difficult problem, instead of focusing on every reason you can't overcome it, remind yourself of every challenge you've already survived. When fear shows up, instead of telling yourself you're weak for feeling it, recognize how courageous you are for moving forward anyway. The art of reframing carries real weight in this phase. This is Jung's alchemy in its most practical form, taking the same raw situation and finding a different way to speak about it, a different angle to approach it from, a different story about what it means and where it's leading you. Instead of this is unbearably difficult, try this is strengthening me in ways I can't yet see. Instead of I have no idea what I'm doing, try I am learning everything I need to know as I move forward. Instead of I'm falling behind everyone else, try I am walking my own path at exactly the right pace. transform every "I can't" into "I am learning how to." This small shift does something remarkable. It stops closing doors and starts holding them open. "I can't speak confidently in front of others" becomes "I am learning to communicate with confidence and presence." "I can't build my own business" becomes "I am learning everything required to create something of my own." "I can't find the right relationship" becomes "I am learning how to draw the right person into my life." These are not word games. They are structural changes to the architecture of your belief, and they compound with extraordinary power over time. Build momentum through small, genuine victories. Acknowledge every positive shift, no matter how small it looks. Celebrate every moment you caught yourself and chose a better thought. Your inner dialogue should become a celebration of progress, not a constant audit of your flaws. Speak to yourself about what's working, what's growing, what's becoming possible. You are not trying to convince yourself of something false. You are choosing to focus on the part of reality that serves your growth, instead of the part that only confirms your limits. Both exist at the same time. You can direct your attention toward what's broken or what's whole, toward what's missing or what's already here, toward what's impossible or what's within reach. The choice belongs to you, no one else. Days 5, 6, and 7 are the phase of elevation and embodiment. This is where you stop speaking as the person you currently are and start speaking as the person you are becoming. You start talking to your future self, that confident, accomplished, fulfilled version of you that already exists as potential inside you, right now. This is not pretending. As Jung described it, this is the awakening of the archetype that already lives within you as unrealized potential. Your future self is not a separate person. It is you, with different habits, different convictions, different conversations, and different daily choices. When you start speaking to yourself the way that person would, you start embodying those qualities right now, instead of waiting for them to arrive someday. Ask yourself these questions, seriously. How does your future self speak to itself? When that confident, grounded version of you faces a major obstacle, what does it say internally? How does your successful self deal with setbacks and temporary failures? What kind of inner conversation does your fulfilled self carry through an ordinary day? Start having those conversations now, not someday, not when things improve, today. Elevate your emotional state through the deliberate use of language. Instead of just thinking positive thoughts in a passive, disconnected way, choose thoughts that actively create high-frequency emotional states. Real gratitude, real excitement, deep inspiration, expansive love, and the quiet joy that doesn't depend on outside conditions. Emotion is the fuel that drives real transformation. When you combine elevated thoughts with the emotions they naturally create, you build a powerful state of being, one that draws new experiences toward you.